Hello, welcome back to Bang Bang Book Reviews. And in today's video, I am going to be reading old reviews of popular Booktok books. If you know anything about Booktok, you know that it has brought back old books and made them New York Times bestsellers again. And a lot of those older books, I read them back when they came out. So I thought it would be fun to read my old reviews that I put on Goodreads or my blog back in the day when blogging was a thing, and see what I thought about those books back then. So let's just jump right into it. Let's start with Red Rising. I read Red Rising, I read it when it first came out. I want to say 2015. It may have come out in 2014, and then I read it like a year later. And I have a little story time, a couple of story times about Red Rising. So this video is going to have timestamps on it. So if you do not want to hear my story time, that's fine. You can skip to what I rated it. But my first story time is I am a librarian, and we have library conventions. It's called ALA. We have library conventions, and one year was in Chicago, which is where I live. And I was with my friend, my coworker, Sarah, and we were at ALA, but it was like Sunday, and we were like exhausted because we're just like running around the exhibit floor, and we're tired. And so I found just like some random, like, they have those little places where they have like speakers or whatever, and it'll be like off to the side under this like section or whatever, and there'll be empty chairs because there's nothing going on. And so we have all of our shit, and we're just sitting there because we're exhausted. And she gets up because she's like, I'm gonna go find some more books and do some more shit. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna sit here, I'm tired. And so she comes back with this book in her hand, and it's like a trade book. It's like this big, and it's thick, and it's Red Rising. And I was like, what's that? And she's like, there was this guy sitting there. He was all by himself. He looked lonely. Nobody was at his table, but he was really cute. And so I got this book, and I got it signed. And I was like, is he so cute that I need to get up and go see him? And she was like, yeah. And I can't remember if I did or not. I think I did. And he was cute. So this is back in the day when Pierce Brown was a nobody. Nobody was at his table. And I just find that to be hilarious. Let's get to my review of Red Rising. I have my reviews written down. So first of all, I DNF'd it at 50%. I did not like it the first time I read it, but my friend Sarah, who was just in my story time, she loved it, and she convinced me to try again. So I tried again, I DNF'd it again. I tried. I gave it a 3-star, and I'm the type of person that if I get 50% into a book, I think that I can give it a rating. I have read enough to form an opinion. And so I gave it a 3-star, which is weird because some people would consider 3 stars pretty good. Not me. I really tried, but I had several issues with this book that caused me to give up midway through. Too many pronouns. If you're going to have all these names, at least add a glossary. EO is a hypocrite. I didn't read all the way to the end, so if her hypocrisy was legit, I apologize. I did some of these on TikTok already, by the way, so if you're here from TikTok, sorry. I read this book already. It was called Hunger Games and Ender's Game and Lord of the Flies. And that was one of the reasons why I really didn't like it, because it just felt like a Hunger Games knockoff, and I wasn't about that life at that time. The treatment of women was deplorable. I hope it got better. From what I hear from other reviewers, it did not get better. That whole Hunger Games at Hogwarts seemed unnecessary. Once again, I didn't like the Hunger Games style of story. It was written well, and the author is cute. So that was my 2015 review of Red Rising. I did not finish the series. Obviously, I DNF'd. Next is Throne of Glass, the first book. I actually read it twice, but the first time I read it was 2013, and I gave it 3.75 stars. Didn't like that ending. Dark Lord was a bit too Harry Potterish, and seeing that there are going to be 6 or 7 books in this series, it definitely resembles Harry Potter. Now, as the series progressed, it does not resemble Harry Potter, but that's how I felt about book 1. Like that there was a black character, even though she was into the voodoo. I guess I have to take what I can get. Now, this is 2013, and you do not see a lot of diversity in YA fantasy. So the fact that there was a black girl in this book was huge. Huge. The love triangle was good. Selena was a good, flawed character. Okay. I like that this book had an ending, even though there will be more books to come. I didn't have a lot to say about Throne of Glass. I will say that I did finish the series, and as the series progressed, I did write more in-depth reviews. If you want to hear them, let me know. If I can continue this series and read more reviews of the Throne of Glass series. But I did continue the series, and I did like the series as it went on. All right, this one's a long one. This is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I gave it 3 stars, and I read it in 2017. Jude and her sister are mercilessly bullied by a prince and the High King and his friends. Although Jude is afraid most of the time, she doesn't show her fear. She just continuously repeats advice from others in her head. Jude's sister is the more affable twin who doesn't want to cause trouble. While Jude longs to be a knight in the king's court, Tyrion just wants to get married and have a simple life. Jude unrealistically endures the bullying by returning to school the day after they try to kill her for a second time, and never has an inner monologue about her trepidation. All the fairies are hot, including Locke, the bully with the heart of gold. Jude witnesses Locke's small act of kindness and figures it's okay to date him, even though he continues to associate with people who are trying to kill them all the fucking time. It's all caps, so I had to read it like that. Jude's stepfather is the general in the king's army, and he's taught his daughters the art of strategy, but you would never know that, seeing how Jude can't even seem to strategically retaliate against her bullies. But she's somehow smart enough to develop and execute the final plan. As you can see, I had issues with this book. I know I'm in the minority here. Now, I knew I was in the minority in 2017. There are a lot of little things that bothered me. Jude's uneven characterization was one of the little things. She gets herself in a situation where she plans her next move to obtain knighthood and glory, but then she quickly realizes that her plan is a real dick move and comes back to reality. At the very end of the novel, she comes back to reality, but the next day she dreams of glory again, but she also does something really out of character that pissed me off, but that's a spoiler. I had a problem with Black's writing style in regards to character development. The motives of the bullies bothered me. Tyrion would have been a great yin to Jude's yang. In the beginning, it seemed like Tyrion was Jude's be careful voice, but Black did not expand this theme, and instead Tyrion's actions and motives were weak. The main villain, I'm assuming the Cruel Prince, was a stereotype that I figured out within the first 2 encounters. We've read him a million times, and there's nothing different or new added to his character. Black did a couple of things that I hate in books. Number 1, I hate when a character suddenly gets an epiphany and figures it all out. Jude does this the entire novel. All caps. She just reads something a couple times and figures it all out. Number 2, I don't like when authors don't write organically, but instead the writing is forced. For example, Jude is a spy, and she just happens to pick the correct room and happens to find the piece of evidence that just happens to be the key to the entire plot, which, by the way, there was no plot, but I'll get to that later. Jude happens to casually pick up a piece of jewelry that just happens to be the answer to everything. I understand that events have to drive the plot, but it should be part of the storytelling. I shouldn't see it coming. The entire book seemed forced. The bullying, the world building, the Game of Thrones style development, the battle among the identical twins, trying to fit in. The bullying really bothered me, and I wouldn't call it bullying, I'd call it torture. It was gratuitous, and they continuously repeated their motives by saying they were torturing her. You're human and you're mortal and you're weak. Okay, I get it. Black seemed to be going for a muggle versus wizard thing, but she didn't do it well. Lastly, this book has no plot. I will drop a star if there's no plot. It was all backstory, and the real story begins in the next book, which I will not be reading, and I didn't. So that was my review of The Cruel Prince. Even though I gave it 3 stars, I was pretty harsh. And the final old review is The Red Queen, which I read in 2015. I actually read the arc in 2015. As far as the characters, they were all pretty believable but formulaic. Cal, soon to be king, still believes the silvers are better than reds and that red should be enslaved, but he's in love with the red. People really do behave this way, and I thought he was a believable character. The queen, she was an okay villain. Mare's betrothed, he was a bit too good to be true, but otherwise he's dreamy. Evangeline, the future queen, she and Mare are at odds, but the author didn't make it too catty. So here's the things I didn't like. And I said that it has a lot of spoilers in it, so you're being warned this might have spoilers. So it's called the Red Queen, but Mare is not a queen, nor does she become queen. It should be called the Red Princess. Perhaps if there is a book 2, that she becomes a queen. However, the story had an ending. I did not read the rest of the series, so I don't know. This book has 2 fatal flaws. Mare was a servant of the castle, but discovers that she has silver powers in front of all the important silvers. No one can explain why she has red blood, but has silver powers. The king and queen want to use her for their benefit, but no one can know she has red blood, so they make up a backstory. She's also forced to be engaged to the prince, so that in 3 weeks she can address the country and say that the silvers are right. Here are the fatal flaws. All someone has to do is cut her to see her blood. Most silvers are skeptical of Mare, including the future queen Evangeline. All she has to do is scratch her and the story's over. It makes no sense to make Mare and the prince get engaged. She is running free and there are rebels on the loose. Why would you let a red with powers run free? She should have been kept in prison and then let out to give her speech. Silvers have mind power. They can easily force her to do whatever they want. At one point, Cal escorts Mare to her hometown to see her family. She asks Cal if she can go to the pub alone. Really? So she can consort with the rebels? Come on. If either one of these happened, there wouldn't be a story. This is bad writing. It's predictable. The rebel storyline, they weren't very smart, but it was a better rebel storyline than the selection. I have seen this several times where the heroine is poor at school, but on a drop of a dime, she can strategize plots and overthrow the monarchy. Sometimes these heroines are street smart, so that's why they're able, and Mare is street smart, but no amount of street smarts can give one the ability to defeat an army. Overall, it's fast-paced but formulaic. So those are my thoughts on the Red Queen. And once again, I did not continue the series. I implore you to go back and read your own reviews of older books that are popular now and give yourself a little chuckle. Thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.